Shalom, Israel. All praises to the Most High. You know what? When the Most High said we will only be oppressed and spoiled continually, that's part of our punishment. Which means when he says spoiled continually is that people are only going to take from us. Take from us, take from us, take from us until he, the Most High, saves us and delivers us and restores us. When he says oppressed continually, that means we will be constantly be killed by authorities, whooped down, beat down, not given fair opportunities, always looked at sideways because that's part of the punishment the Most High has placed upon us. And only he can save us and deliver us, and he's going to because he promised he will. And he's starting to do that now. Now, when the Most High also says in the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28 that we will become a byword and a proverb and an astonishment. Now, we are an astonishment by, first of all, by our amazing athletic feats and our brains and our spirit, everything we can do. But we're an astonishment on how we act. People be astonished. They be like, damn, them Negroes, bro. But when he says a byword, he means that people were going to call us everything other than who we are. The children of Israel, the Hebrews, the seed of Jacob, the Israelites. That's what he means by a byword. We're going to be a byword, and we are a byword because people call us everything other than who we are, and they always changing our name. Now, I'm going to show you. What do I do with my sticky notes? Man? Oh, here we go right here. I'm going to show you how the United States and the world, they know who we are. But they've been telling us, but we haven't had eyes to see because the Most High put a spirit of slumber over us. But let me read this to you. This is the House Joint Resolution 3 during the 110th Congress, first session. This is what it says: to acknowledge a long history of official depredations and ill-conceived policies by the United States government regarding Indian tribes and offer an apology to all native peoples on behalf of the United States. See, we don't know that we are the real indigenous people of these lands. We don't know that. But if you look up Webster's 1828 definition of American, it'll tell you. The copper-colored people of America now apply to Europeans. See, we don't know that. We don't know that we are the Indians. We don't know that, but they know that. But this is the House Joint Resolution 3. In the House of Representatives, January 4th, 2007. Mrs. Joanne Davis of Virginia introduced the following joint resolution, which was referred to the Committee on Natural Resources because they owe us all kinds of, not only reparations, they owe us money from the land that they took from us and the treaties they signed with our people. But we don't call ourselves that anymore, so we can't say anything. Joint resolution to acknowledge a long history of official depredations and ill-conceived policies by the United States government regarding Indian tribes and offer an apology to all native peoples on behalf of the United States. Whereas the ancestors of today's native peoples inhabited the land of the present-day United States since time immemorial, and for thousands of years before the arrival of peoples of European descent. Whereas the native peoples have for millennia honored, protected, and stewarded this land we cherish. Whereas the native peoples are spiritual peoples with a deep and abiding belief in the Creator, and for millennia, their peoples have maintained a powerful spiritual connection to this land, as is evidenced by their customs and legends. Whereas the arrival of Europeans in North America opened a new chapter in the histories of the native peoples. Whereas while establishment and permanent European settlements in North America did stir conflict with nearby Indian tribes, peaceful and mutually beneficial interactions also took place. Whereas the foundational English settlements in Jamestown, Virginia, and Plymouth, Massachusetts owed their survival in large measure to the compassion and aid of the native peoples in their vicinities. Whereas in the infancy of the United States, the founders of the Republic expressed their desire for a just relationship with the Indian tribes, as evidenced by the Northwest Ordinance enacted by Congress in 1787, which begins with the phrase, "The utmost good faith shall always be observed toward the Indians." Whereas Indian tribes provided great assistance to the fledgling republic as it strengthened and grew, including invaluable help to Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on their epic journey from St. Louis, Missouri to the Pacific coast. Whereas native peoples and non-native settlers engaged in numerous armed conflicts, because our people used to fight back all the time. Whereas the United States government violated many of the treaties ratified by Congress and other diplomatic agreements with Indian tribes. Whereas this nation should address the broken treaties and many of the more ill-conceived federal policies that followed, such as extermination, termination, forced removal and relocation, the outlawing of traditional religions, and the destruction of sacred places. Whereas the United States forced Indian tribes and their citizens to move away from their traditional homelands and onto federally established and controlled reservations in accordance with such acts as the Indian Removal Act of 1830. See, they'll talk about the Trail of Tears, where they're talking about right now. Whereas many Native people suffered and perished during the execution of the official United States government policy of forced removal, including the infamous Trail of Tears and Long Walk. See, the Trail of Tears were our people being moved from right here in Tennessee, Mississippi to Oklahoma. That's why you had Black Wall Street. We had hundreds of so-called black towns in Oklahoma. The Trail of Tears took them from here to the southwest part of the United States, which included Oklahoma. That's why you had Black Wall Street. That's why you had a lot of black towns in Oklahoma. There were hundreds of them. They were wealthy, but they didn't realize a lot of those lands that they gave them had oil on it. So a lot of us got wealthy, so they took that again. Like when they bombed Black Wall Street. That's really what that was about, getting that land back and getting them resources. But anyway, continuing on. During bloody armed confrontations and massacres such as the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864 and the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1860, and on numerous Indian reservations. See, a lot of Indian reservations were in Oklahoma. Our people were on those reservations because that's the land that they gave us, the land that they thought wasn't nothing. Whereas the United States government condemned the traditions, beliefs, and customs of the native peoples and endeavored to assimilate them by such policies as the redistribution of land under the General Allotment Act of 1887 and the forcible removal of native children from their families to faraway boarding schools where their native practices and languages were degraded and forbidden. Whereas officials of the United States government and private United States citizens harmed native peoples by the unlawful acquisition of recognized tribal land, the theft of resources from such territories, and the mismanagement of tribal trust funds. See, they have trust funds that they promised to give us. But since we don't call ourselves Indians or natives, they tricking us that all of us came from Africa. We don't call ourselves that anymore. How are we going to go say who we are? Whereas the policies of the United States government toward Indian tribes and the breaking of covenants with Indian tribes have contributed to the severe social ills and economic troubles in many native communities today. Who have all those? Who have so severe social ills and economic troubles? We do. Whereas despite continuing maltreatment of native peoples by the United States, the native peoples have remained committed to the protection of this great land, as evidenced by the fact that on a per capita basis, more native people have served in the United States Armed Forces and placed themselves in harm's way in defense of the United States in every major military conflict than any other ethnic group. What native group of people have fought for the United States in every major military conflict than any other ethnic group? What group of people have done that? We did. World War II, at least 1 million so-called blacks fought in World War II. 33,000 Japanese Americans, 24,000 who are considered American Indians. Civil War, 500,000 folk fought. They say 200,000 to 300,000 blacks fought in the Union, for the Union. and about 10,000 or more, and I'm pretty sure it was more than that, fought for the Confederacy. Of Native Americans, they say 3,600. American Revolution, about at least 40,000 blacks fought in the American Revolution. And according to their numbers, about 1,000 so-called Native Americans fought during the American Revolution. So what ethnic group has fought for the United States in every major war to protect the United States more than anybody? We have. And don't forget James Armistead, the brother, he's the one that ended the American Revolution by working as a double spy for the Americans, or for the Americans and the French against the British. Tells you that right there. Whereas Indian tribes have actively influenced the public life of the United States by continual cooperation with Congress and the Department of the Interior through the involvement of Native individuals in official United States government positions and by their leadership of their own sovereign Indian tribes. We have a lot of us that's still living as Indian tribes, as Chickasaw, Choctaw, all kinds of Indian. A lot of us still living as Indians. When you look up the Pequot tribe in Connecticut, they own casinos. They own a lot of land, and they're Negroes. Because Donald Trump tried to open up a casino way back in the day, and the Congress was like, "I'm sorry, man, you can't do that. That's on Indian reservation land." And Donald Trump was like, "Hold on, those don't look like Indians to me," because they were black people who were still embracing their Indian, I want to say ancestry, but that's just another byword that we've called ourselves. Indian, indigenous. Indian, indigenous. Indian red, if you look at the old Crayola box, Indian red is black, brown. Not black, brown. Ruddy. Ruddy means brown. It's brown. That's what Indian red is. It's brown. Continuing on. Whereas Indian tribes are resilient and determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their unique cultural identities. Whereas the National Museum of the American Indian was established within the Smithsonian Institution as a living memorial to the Native peoples and their traditions. And whereas Native peoples are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So they're saying Native peoples are endowed by their creator because the Most High is our God and none else. He's the creator of everyone. That's why they said that, endowed by their creator. Because Joel 2:27, the Most High says, "I am in the midst of Israel. I'm the Lord your God and none else." That's why they write Native peoples are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, thereby resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Then it goes on, the rest of them. And I have an old census report. From 1790 to 1860, they only had two groups of people classified, blacks and whites. Then 1860, Native Americans popped up. And it'll tell you from up until then, Native American was non-applicable. Up until 1860, they said it popped up 0.01% or something like that. But it was only two groups of people. See, we don't know who we are. They've been constantly changing our names. See, they know who we are. That's why they put it in there. But we don't call ourselves those anymore. And also, a lot of people calling themselves American Indian. Have y'all ever look up the Dawes Rolls? Well, people were able to pay $5 to be called Indian, so they can get some land and some money and some grants back in the day. Everybody could do that but us. We couldn't do it. But everybody could go and get their name put on a Dawes Rolls. They paid $5. They call them $5 Indians. They paid them $5 to get their names on the Dawes Rolls to be considered Indians, to get access to some land, some free land. Everybody could do that, but we couldn't do that. But yeah, they know. That's House Joint Resolution 3, 110th Congress, first session, joint resolution. In the House of Representatives, January 4th, 2007. I mean, I just want to share a little history with y'all because I read and research. All praises to the Most High, though. All praises, because the Most High said everything he took from us, He's going to give it back to us and even more. Shalom.